Hello, everyone. Olivia Robinson, Nahi Najana, Naya Bidra Mara, Neela, Dina, Nayana, Naya, Nandigu, Jagara, and Turrbal. Naja, Naya, Gumba, Jagara, and Turrbal, Mayana, Nandigu. My name is Olivia Robinson, and I am a Bidra woman. Today I stand on the country of Jagara and Turrbal. And in my Bidra language, I pay my respects to Jagera and Turrbal people and country. I would like to also acknowledge all Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders tuning in this evening from all over Queensland and pay my respects to you and your elders. If you like, please pop your country in the chat. It's always nice to know where you're joining us from. As I said, my name's Olivia and I lead the collection engagement team in Queensland Memory at State Library of Queensland. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to the Monica Clare Research Fellowship information session for a casual chat with two inspirational First Nations women and researchers, Rose Barracliff and Rachel West. I'll tell you about them in just a minute. The session tonight is being recorded and the recording will be available on the State Library website in a week or so. Feel free to ask questions via the Q&A function on Zoom, and Chrissy Theodosio, our research coordinator, is ready on the keyboard to facilitate that process. Monica Clare was an Aboriginal Australian political activist and the First Nations woman to publish a novel, Carabrine, which was published after her death. State Library of Queensland wanted to honour her and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander researchers and storytellers, and in 2020 chose Dr. Fiona Foley, renowned artist and academic, as the inaugural Monica Clare Fellow. This year, the Monica Clare Research Fellowship, with the generous support of the Queensland Library Foundation and the Siganto Foundation, will have an increased stipend of $20,000, enabling Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander researchers to explore and reinterpret State Library's collections for a period of 12 months. So let's dive right into learning more about this wonderful opportunity with our guests. Dr. Rose Barracliff is a Bachelor Wanamata researcher and artist based on Gubbi Gubbi country, the Sunshine Coast of Queensland in Australia. Her work and research are about understanding how Indigenous peoples are represented in archives. She is a postdoctoral research fellow at Macquarie University in Sydney and an advisor to the Queensland State Archives. Rose is a judge on the Monica Clare Research Fellowship, so her insights tonight are really valuable. Welcome, Rose.
Hi, Olivia.
Rachel is the 2021 Monica Clare Research Fellow, and her project is now in its 7th year of its proposed 10-year program of research, collation and publication. Rachel is gearing up an exciting unveiling in 2026 for the family this research belongs to, and for the wider audience who are interested in the area of research Rachel has been undertaking. 8 clans near the borders of Gaduga and Lightning Ridge in New South Wales and areas near Bowen and Mitchell in Queensland. This study includes groups of the Marawari, Gungari, Ualia, Kuma, Punja, Menindangi, Kamilaroi, and Uwalay people. Rachel is hopeful that the final outcome of this long-term project will be a total of 4 publications that will encompass her entire work, including the First Nation story of her stolen generation family, her personal journey, adoption journey of finding and meeting her maternal First Nations family, as well as her paternal English family, Aboriginal history research, and a First Nations family history research publication outlining her research journey to assist other First Nations people venturing on their own family history discovery. Wow, Rachel, you've been on an incredible journey with more to come. So, can you tell us about your initial research leading up to applying for the Monica Clare Research Fellowship and what led you to apply?
Yeah, so my research journey began almost immediately as soon as I found my maternal birth family 7 years ago in 2016. I went on a quest to find out information about who my grandmother was and who her parents, my great-grandparents, were, as I wanted to be able to build my family tree. So I wanted to know who my great-great and my great-great-great First Nations ancestors are and go back as far as I possibly could and beyond. So I was, sorry.
No.
So I was researching using Ancestry family trees, and there was absolutely nothing on Ancestry. So I began purchasing births, deaths, and marriages certificates. And from the information available on these, I was able to get my next clues. And that led me to discover CIFHS records, which is the Centre for Indigenous Family History Studies, and a major discovery and a blessing of a uni thesis, master's, that was written about the unique architecture of the Gadooga tin camp where my family had lived. That's just a little bit of an intro where my search started.
And so what led you to apply? How did you find out about the Monica Clare Research Fellowship?
Yeah, so a family member-in-law had been contacting me regarding my family history research as she was interested for preserving our family history for her children. And she sent me the link for the Monica Clare Research Fellowship, and I sort of didn't think too much of it, and then I had a look through the criteria, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is really relevant to the research that I've been doing for the past 4 years. And the questions were very unintimidating and like, I don't know.
That sounds, yeah. I mean, a lot of people, I think, probably have the same sort of approach and feeling that that you had. But so glad that you applied. I thought I might just ask Rose, because Rose, you're a researcher yourself and an advisor to the Queensland State Archives, and Rachel alluded to it a little bit in terms of those archives that you can access. So what value, Rose, do you think collections bring to truth-telling and storytelling for researchers? And what does it tell us about Queensland?
Yeah, well, I think there's still so much in archives, in archival records that can help support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people specifically in understanding their family or community history, but then also more broadly for everyone to understand, like Indigenous and non-Indigenous, to understand the history of Queensland. There's so much in archives that really it takes people accessing those records to share what is there. Because if I think about Queensland State Archives as an example, we have something like 3.5 million records there, but only 7% of those records have ever been accessed. And I think, it's really important to have researchers like Rachel and Monica Clare, the research fellowship that supports people being able to spend time in the collections, because I think the perception is that archivists know everything that's in there, but they absolutely do not. It's the general public coming and using these records and then sharing what they find that helps us to understand our broader history.
Yeah. And what advice do you give First Nations researchers about taking their research to that next level in terms of a fellowship or other type of research? Like, when does it move from something that might be a hobby to something that really they could, you know, do as a job, or to really investigate and spend some quality research time investigating?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways that could go, right? Like, I started my work just, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago, and I'd never stepped foot in an archive at that point in time. And it really came from trying to find out some information about my community and my family in an archive. And then I got more and more interested in the process of doing that. So it can definitely start out as a hobby and become something a lot more than that. And I think the beauty of the Monica Clare Fellowship is that you don't have to be an academic researcher to apply for it. So it can be, like Rachel's talking about, doing her own family history search. It can be that you don't have to be an academic, but if you are an academic, the getting funding of any sort looks great on your CV. So, you know, not only is it supporting you, it's often, you know, people are often trying to research and work at the same time. Getting something like this fellowship gives you that breathing space to actually really spend time, quality time in the collection, and be able to delve really deep into it. But yeah, you never know what you'll find. And the added bonus is it looks great on your CV as well as an academic.
Excellent. Actually, we've just had a question come through and on the chat, and it's, are we able to research family history and information if our heritage is from New South Wales but then move to Queensland? Well, that's a good question. I think what we are looking for, and we'll get to this a little bit further in the conversation as well, is that we're looking for researchers, applicants, being able to access collections that the State Library holds in the John Oxley Library collection. So certainly that's sort of the emphasis that we're looking for in our applications. So first of all, and we can talk about this a little bit later, certainly, being able to access and find value and connection with the Queensland, the collections that we have in the John Oxley Library, which is about Queensland history, and other parts of the library too, because we have other collections as well. Yeah, and that's sort of one of the main sort of things that we're looking for as part of the application process. And we'll touch on the types of collections that we have, and how you go about sort of connecting with those and communicating sort of research, that initial research that you have to do as part of your application process. So we're just we'll come to that and hopefully provide a bit more context around that shortly. So Rachel, having made that step to submit an application for the Monica Clare Fellowship and then being successful in getting it, how did you start your project?
Yeah, so I started by moving to Queensland from New South Wales. Similar to Anna's question, I'm the opposite way around. My family came from Queensland and we were removed from our homelands and we ended up in New South Wales. So I grew up in New South Wales and thought I would live in Orange for the rest of my life. And then I was awarded the Monica Clare Research Fellowship and found myself moving to Brisbane to make the most of my fellowship opportunity and trawl the resources at the State Library of Queensland.
Yeah, very good. And so did you feel, how did you find the process of, so a lot of your research was done initially sort of out of the state and then coming into the library, or was it a bit of, how much time did you spend actually in the library or accessing the collections, do you think? Or did you do it sort of remotely through the digitized collections as well?
Yeah, a bit of both. So when I first moved here, I spent 6 weeks working full-time on my project. I had that luxury before I had to get a job, and start working and have to put my project to the side to do on the weekends and whenever I could.
That's
yeah.
Rachel, you gave this amazing presentation at one of our events at the State Library in February this year called Research Revealed. And what I found fascinating about your story and your presentation, I absolutely loved it. I walked away feeling so inspired by your journey, your research journey, because it seems something so normal and possible, I suppose, that a lot of people go down this road of wanting to discover more about a particular part of their family or their community or an element of history, I suppose, that they might have a connection to. And yours, and I think what I find really inspiring is that you took that step forward and moved it into sort of that next phase of research and discovery. And I think that was, but I think for me, I was thinking, wow, this person that really didn't come from a research background or academia or anything like that, just sort of went, right, there's something here that I can do. There's material out there to discover, and I want to learn more about it and try to put these pieces together and tell that family story. So I think that was amazing. Did you feel at all, because you're obviously very passionate about it, but did you feel nervous about taking that step and thinking, oh, what am I going to discover in the process?
I actually didn't. I don't, like, I'm a pretty shy sort of a person. I'd say a little bit nervous, but it just felt right. Like, it just felt like everything happened so naturally, like it was supposed to be. It was just a part of my journey. Like, and for anyone else who was going to apply for this, if you're meant to win the Monica Clare Research Fellowship, then it's going to happen, and it's going to be life-changing, because that's what happened to me.
And that's certainly, I think, part of it. So do you think that the fellowship lived up to the expectations that you had, like in terms of what has it led you down? What has it led you to so far?
Well, I've made some pretty epic discoveries in the library, and it's just validated my research, like the fact that I'd been doing it for so long beforehand, just because it was something I was passionate about. It's just validified everything that I was doing, and it's opening doors to my future, and it's shaping my future. Having been awarded the fellowship, yeah, the future looks amazing. It's just my life is gonna revolve around this research, and that's a really beautiful thing.
What I found touching about your presentation when you talked about your research in February also was how what you're discovering and what you're learning as part of your research journey, you're sharing with your family. And that family is, you're still meeting your family as you've gone through that process of researching. And I think that's really interesting. So for me, I felt that the broader effect of what you're doing is not only sort of that personal journey that you've been on, but also how that's then followed on, and there's been some discoveries for your broader family and for your community. And I just wanted to know if could you touch on some of that for us?
Yeah, for my family, like my grandmother, who my research is in honor of, has 51 living descendants, and her 12 children were removed from her. So we've lost touch with our culture and everything to do with my grandmother's family. So nobody has gone down the path that I've gone down to try and find out yet. So the work that I'm doing is really important for our family to be able to find out who our family is.
Yeah, it's pretty special, I think. It's and very much a the repercussions of what you're doing, I think, will is now and into the future. It's an important process that you're going down. So thanks for sharing that detail about it. Rose, I just wanted to ask you, as a judge for the Monica Clare Research Fellowship, what type of features are you looking for in a good application?
Well, you've already touched on one, and that was that we really want to see how the successful applicants are going to be using items from the collection at State Library. So it's a really good idea to jump on the online catalogue or Trove, or visit the library in person if you can, and think about or give an indication that you've already done some preliminary research and you know what records that might be there that might relate to your research. So that looks great on the application. I think, you know, impact is always important with any sort of research fellowship. So who is going to benefit from that? So in Rachel's family, obviously there's huge benefits there to Rachel's family and wider community. So how does your research support the community, in what way? And that can be very unique to your research. It doesn't have to be, I think we've seen some applications where people have had very ambitious goals to deliver all sorts of things within the year. And that actually isn't something that's necessarily required. You know, you don't have to be publishing a book within the year of being awarded the fellowship or something like that, or exhibit, but just have some sort of outcomes in mind as to how your research can benefit the broader community. I think those are kind of the key ones that come to mind when I think about the applications that came out most strongly.
Thanks, Rose. I mean, it's I think the collections are a really key element, like we've sort of touched on before, and you just touched on. At the State Library, our collections are so diverse. So we have sometimes we have collections that, you know, what we call the metadata. So the information around a collection is really wholesome, and we know what we're looking at. But then other times too, we have collections that we don't know much about them, and they might say that they're about, you know, the station records, or they're, you know, about a diary of, you know, someone who lived, you know, in the 1800s in a particular part of Queensland. But it's not until we actually delve into the collections, that diary, do we actually find out that it's got amazing material in there and amazing information about the local Aboriginal people, or the local language spoken, or interactions between that person who owned the diary and the local Aboriginal people. So so collections are really important in understanding what is in the collection that people can access. And I have to say, it's having one of the benefits of any of the fellowships under the Queensland Memorial Awards banner is that we have these amazing librarians who work here, that know these collections. They know how to search the catalogue, one search catalogue that you referred to, Rose, before, and they can help. There's incredibly experienced staff here and librarians who can assist and will help you through that process of identifying content that's relevant. So the type of things that people can find in collections are things like diaries, and photographs, and oral histories, digital stories. Station records are really important for a lot of Queensland communities. Rare books, of course, and some of these books were published, you know, in the 1800s or earlier than that as well. We even have artwork and artist books as well. So they tell us something about people's experiences as well, and you might find some real gold in those. there's really a lot to discover and to investigate in collections. So reiterating what Rose said, so remember in your application, you'll need to include some information about what collection items you are planning to use in your project. And we've the other thing that we've done over the years too at the State Library is, and I know that the Queensland State Archives are doing this as well, Rose, where you're an advisor, is going through and tagging collections, particularly collections that relate to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander languages, and tagging them with the IACSIS Oxley language protocols as well. So there's some standardisation in searching, and to make it easier to get over the multiple ways that people have spelt different language names. So, for instance, at the State Library, you can go to our catalogue and you can choose a particular language group. For example, if I type in Waka Waka, I can see we have 28 items that relate to the Waka Waka language. So that tagging has been completed for our collections of language resources. So if anyone's out there who's particularly keen about exploring your traditional language and you want to find out what we've got in the collection, you come to our catalogue and you can have a look, and then if you want to explore even further, you can get in touch with us and speak to a librarian and see what else we've got that's relevant. It is a journey. It is research is something that you can't necessarily do quickly. It's a process of discovery, and along the way you can have a fantastic time doing it. Interesting, intriguing, and fascinating approach to the work that we do. Rachel, I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend to other First Nations researchers who are considering applying?
Look, I would recommend that if you consider yourself a real life Nancy Drew and would like access to a massive big warehouse of resources and to be funded financially for your research project that you're passionate about, and apply for the Monica Clare Research Fellowship. That's my advice is put your hat in the ring.
Fantastic. I think that's really good advice. And just something that we thought we might clarify for people. It hasn't come up in a question yet, but we might as well put it out there. In terms of outcomes, and Rose sort of mentioned this earlier, we don't necessarily expect that you're going to have these huge research outcomes as a result of your research project or time with the State Library. There are certain things that need to be delivered as part of the Monica Clare Research Fellowship. And those things are like, I think it's blog articles. There's 3 blog articles that we request, which get posted on the John Oxley Library blog. And I have to say, that's a fantastic online forum for getting information about your research and your story to a broader audience. We have excellent visitation to that from the general public every month, and I definitely, if you're not following the John Oxley Library blog already, I recommend that you do, because you'll learn so much about Queensland history following that blog. The other thing that is an outcome that we ask for is what we call an annotated bibliography. What that is basically you tell us a little bit about the collections that you found, and you help describe them. And the way and we try to use that to help other researchers as well. So if you've spent, a good, many months looking into a particular topic, it's always good to be able to share that research that you've undertaken with other people. And the other thing that we ask, and I spoke about a little bit earlier, is you need to be able to give a public presentation So we had our Research Reveals event in February of this year, and Rachel kindly shared her research with members of the public, and we're doing that again in February next year. So we do that each sort of the year after each of the fellows undertake their research. So that's really about it, pretty much, in terms of outcomes that are expected from a fellowship. Sometimes, you know, we might get a request we've had in the past, not particular to the Monica Clare Research Fellowship, but in other fellowships where the research topic is so interesting, it garners all this fantastic sort of attention from the media and the broader public. And then sometimes we have our fellows who are doing radio interviews and things like that. But it's not, sometimes it's like that, and then other times people quietly go ahead and do their research. So it's quite broad, but what I think is really exciting is that it's a unique opportunity for you to take an idea, take a project that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, to take that time out and to do your research and to develop your ideas and see where it takes you. Oh, and one other thing that is really handy too, or interesting as well, is that sometimes you might choose a topic that doesn't, that we don't have strong collections in. That's okay, because what we do sometimes with fellowships, research fellowships, is that we might acquire material as well. So we've had in the past situations where we might have a little bit of content that a research fellow has come in to explore, but their topic is so important to Queensland history and the relationships that they build in community through their research project, that we might gain material for the collection through the research fellowship. So sometimes we, as a result of a fellowship, we've recorded oral histories, or we've developed digital stories, or we've acquired photographs, or different types of collection material as a result of fellowships as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, do we just seeing if we've got any other questions? If you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section in the chat, and we can answer any of those that you may have. Happy to really answer anything. I think the other thing to keep in mind, some people say to us, you know, can I apply from out of the state? And we say, yes, you can. So if you're living in another part of Australia, but you want a research topic that's relevant to Queensland and relevant to our collections, then absolutely you can apply for a fellowship. Rachel moved to Queensland, but you don't have to do that. You can just you can do it in blocks. You don't have to be in the building for a long period of time or for the whole 12 months. You can, it's up to you really about how you want to spend your time. But certainly if you do decide to come into the library, part of the fellowship is to have a dedicated space within the Neil Roberts Research Lounge. And it's in the back of house area to just behind the John Oxley Library Reading Room. And you're sort of in the staff area with all the collections. It's a pretty dynamic place where we process the collections, and you'll have access to staff, which is a really important part of it. So you can touch base with staff and ask them questions, and that's one of the benefits of being a Monica Clare Research Fellow as well. So I'll just see. Okay. Can a joint application be submitted? Example, 2 people. Yes, it can. So we have in the past another fellowship had a situation where you can have 2 people researching a particular topic, and we're flexible to do that as well. So we welcome applications from a team as well as individuals. And just seeing if there's any more for that. Chat. Oh, okay. Sorry, just going to see if there's any other questions. Maybe could you send them through? Sorry, I've got Chrissy on
I
the,
am sending them
on the
here.
Q&A, and she's going to send through some questions. I think we've got a couple coming through. Not sure. Okay, sorry, I just saw one. Are there any records that are off limits or sealed, such as some from the Queensland State Archives? Okay. It's rare for us to have collections that are sealed or off limits. State Library really approaches our collections in the vein that they are open to people and are part of their, you know, the prerequisite, I suppose, of us having collections and gaining collections or gaining material for our collections is so that we can make it accessible to people. So they're not, we do have a couple of collections that we have that are sealed for a period of time because of the sensitive nature of what's in them. We also have genealogies that are not necessarily sealed. Family members can access them. We have 2 amazing collections. We have the Tyndale collection, and that has genealogies in it of Aboriginal people and families. And we also have the Margaret Laurie collection, which is from the Torres Strait Islander, and that has genealogies in it as well. So the genealogies are accessible. You just need to provide some type of identification for those. But certainly, for the most part, though, most of our collections are open for the public. And just another question come through too. How can you spend the money? Okay, so you can spend the money however you want to spend the money. It's not tied to anything in particular, and it's up to you to manage that as you need and to balance, I suppose, your priorities or your home and research and work life however you need to during that 12-month period. Does that include Air Force information? I'm just not sure what that, I see a question there. Sorry?
That's national.
Oh, National Archives. Yeah, okay. So if you're referring to, say, Defence Force or anything like that, that would probably be part of maybe sort of national archives. So there's the National Archives of Australia, and then sometimes there might be private material that's held at the National Library of Australia. I suppose it depends on what type of information you're after. Oftentimes state libraries, including the State Library of Queensland, the type of content we have is material, obviously, that's published in Queensland, material that's relating to Queensland, that sort of doesn't have that sort of federal government aspect to it, or state government. State government content is with Queensland State Archives. And what we have is sort of more private collections. And that's where we sort of come to and publish material relating to Queensland. So private collections are those things that you probably have in your family archives. So things like photographs and diaries, manuscripts, correspondence, and things like that. Yes, okay. Just saw a question from Angel. Truth telling about, oh, your dad, Len Walters. Okay, first Aboriginal. Well, funny, it's what you have, just what you've talk about there in terms of Len Waters being the first Aboriginal fighter pilot for World War II. Can I just say that, you know, one of the things that we have done in recent years, from 2014 to 2018, State Library did an enormous amount of work on commemorating World War I. And as part of that, we were able to discover lots of information about people from Queensland who fought in the First World War, as well as we discovered a lot of information about First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who fought in World War I as well. So it was quite exciting and really interesting, and the research around that is quite fascinating, because what we thought we knew at the beginning of that commemorative process in 2014 was only a very small fraction of what was actually there. And a part of it is because the archives themselves don't necessarily reflect the truth. Sometimes people sort of, because they weren't allowed to fight in the war, if they were Aboriginal, sometimes they would not tell the truth about being Aboriginal to actually get in. So we actually found to enlist. So we actually found, by doing our own research into the collections, we discovered so many more people than what we initially thought. Now, for World War II, we are really at the very beginnings of our research into World War II veterans and Queensland experiences. So, and that's for non-Indigenous, and certainly we would be really excited if you were thinking about doing research into First Nations experiences of World War II. That's something that we know that we may have some material there to discover, but certainly it's an area that we would be intrigued to have material to come into the collection as well. So certainly that's one, and World War II is one of those topics that could do that. And then there's other topics as well. People might have research, as I said earlier, that we might have some content in, but then gaining more information about that and adding that to our collection for other people to discover and use is a priority for us as well. So I'm certainly, so in terms of the type of content that you're going to find, Angel, about your dad, I would recommend that you reach out to us in preparation for your application for the Monica Clare Research Fellowship. We could do some, the librarians can do a little bit of research for you, as well as sort of point you in the right direction and see if we have anything. Now, I think part of a research project, I suppose, is coming at it from all different angles. So you might find that there might not be anything directly identified in the catalogue, but there might be other avenues, community histories, different stories from different stations, or things like that, that could help piece the story or research together. In addition to that, one thing I can say is that you don't necessarily have to just research at the State Library of Queensland either. You might reach out to, go out to the Queensland State Archives. You might go to the National Archives as well that are based in Brisbane. There's other places that you might that you might access as part of your research project. It doesn't have to be just the State Library of Queensland collections. Okay. Angel says that you gave up writing in 1903 when you passed. It was bad teaching. Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. If you don't know basically how to start, or where to start, or how to get going, feel free to reach out to us, and you can contact us. So Chrissy is going to post in the chat details as to the where you can go for more information. So at our email address, as well as you can also just contact the librarians through the Ask Us through our website as well. So information about the Monica Clare Research Fellowship and including past fellows and their research project, you can see that on our website. So Chrissy will share those details with you. Just wondering if we have any more questions come through. If you do, please send them through and we'll try to answer them. So I'm really liking these questions that are coming through. They're all really relevant. No question is silly, trust me. Okay. Yeah. So give us a call, have a chat to us. And I'm sure, or if you're around to, then arrange to have an appointment as well, and you can come in and speak to us as well if you're thinking about doing it. One thing I will say too about the application process is that you submit your application online. So it's something that we ventured into for the Queensland Memory Awards application process last year, and it's an easy process to use. If anyone it's via a program called Smarty Grants, and it is easy to use. The application form, as Rachel indicated earlier, is quite simple, and I'd probably recommend that you do a little bit of research first, you put together your answers, and then when you go in, you can log in and create sort of an account, log in and start filling out your application online. Now, I think, Chrissy, anything else?
Nothing else.
No?
We're good.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, or Rose or Rachel, did you have any other thoughts that you wanted to share at all based on your own experience?
I guess Angel's kind of touched on this. I was thinking that, we've spoken a lot about family history or community history, but it doesn't have to be about that. And like Angel's mentioned, World War II experience, but, it can be about pop culture or punk rock or whatever. It doesn't have to just be about family or community histories.
Yes, thanks, Rose. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's your research topic can be really whatever you want relating. It just needs to connect back to the collections in some way or another. But yeah, absolutely. It can be much broader than family history, of course. There's a question from Isabel. Do you have to provide a confirmation of Aboriginality form to apply? Yes, you do. It's sort of standard process for us. The Monica Clare Research Fellowship is for Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders researchers. So we do, as part of the application process, request that you do have a confirmation of Aboriginality included in your application. The process too, just so while we're on that, is once you submit an application, the applications then go to a panel of judges who will look at the application. The person is chosen and notified in October, and there is a ceremony that occurs at the beginning of November, and here at the State Library of Queensland. So, and then the research project starts in about January next year, so January to December 2024. Okay, just looking at Angel's comments here. Fantastic. Yeah. One of the other things, one of the other fellowships too, we have a range of fellowships on offer. So the Monica Clare Research Fellowship is just one of those. And there is another information session tomorrow night, which covers the other fellowships as well and residencies that are on offer as part of the Queensland Memory Awards in 2024. One of those is the Rainbow Research Fellowship, which is to, I suppose, uncover the histories and experiences of members of the LGBTIQA+ community in Queensland. And the first time we offered that fellowship was last year. So we're expecting a number of research sort of applications for that one as well. And of course, the flagship and first research fellowship that we have is the John Oxley Library Fellowship. That's on offer as well. This year, for a number of our research fellowships, the stipends have been increased. So if you applied last year and you're thinking of applying this year again, go on to the Queensland Memory website, the State Library website under the Queensland Memory Awards, and you'll be able to see the range of research fellowships on offer. I think that might be about it. If you have any other burning questions, please let us know, drop us a line, email us, give us a call, and we'd be really happy to help you and steer you in the right direction. So just to sum up then, so the Queensland Memory Awards 2024 is now open. So start your Monica Clare Research Fellowship applications for submission by the 14th of August. So actually about 4 weeks away. So start the process now. It can take, to get sort of all the information that you need together. I'd probably recommend that you don't wait till the last minute and sort of start thinking about it now, and then coming in and having a look at the collections or looking online at our collections as well. As I said before, you can visit the State Library website for more information. And while you're there, can I just encourage you to go to the Monica Clare Research Fellowship page, and you'll see a wonderful story about Rachel's research project that we recently filmed with Rachel at her home north of the Sunshine Coast. Reach out to us again if you have any questions about the process or your research idea. We're really here to help. And I wanted to say a special thank you to both Rose and Rachel for taking the time to chat tonight. Thank you both. You're just wonderful, and I'm looking forward to all the research that you get to do. So thanks very much for taking the time out on your busy schedules.
Thank you.
All of the Queensland Memory Awards are made possible through the generosity of donors to our Queensland Library Foundation. The Monica Clare Research Fellowship featured tonight is funded by a local Queensland family with generations of involvement in and support for State Library of Queensland. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank the Seganto Foundation for their generosity. Thank you for joining us this evening. And again, thank you for all your questions as well. It was really good, and I'm sure that you asking a question probably helped someone else too. They probably had a similar question to you. So thanks for participating and joining us and being a part of the conversation. Thanks, Rose. Thanks, Rachel. I'm sure we'll see you soon, and really looking forward to the next stage for you, Rachel, in your research project. And Rose, we'll see you soon, sure, at the library. Thank you both. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Olivia.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.